Hello, my name is Jack Kelley from Kelley Calls It, and this is GCTV's brand new sports show where I, Jack Kelley from Kelley Calls It, will bring you the latest sports news and my personal picks. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. Seeing as this show is a sports show where I have tons of papers with notes and box scores and other very detailed sports facts, if you are not yourself a sports fan, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys some other time. If you're still watching, we have some breaking news. Sean Payton is stepping away from the head coaching job of the New Orleans Saints. Now, we don't know if he's stepping away as in he's quitting or he's just stepping down for a little while. The team is $71 million over the cap, so it's going to be a rough offseason. They're going to have to cut probably 15 to 20 good quality players. And I don't think even then they'll be able to re-sign the players they need to re-sign. So it makes sense at this point to maybe step back if you're not interested in a rebuild. But if you're any other team with an opening, especially a team like the Dallas Cowboys, who with Jerry Jones would love to have Sean Payton back, you're looking to call this guy up and say, come on down to Dallas, or come on down to New York, or come on down to Chicago. I guess those last two are come on up, but you catch my drift. This past Sunday, we saw what is possibly the greatest game of football I have ever watched in my entire life, and it was a barn burner. We saw a 36-42 final score in overtime, and this game, I mean, bell to bell, highlights. I could just sit here quietly and show you the entire highlight reel, and you would be entertained. But I do want to talk about some specifics from said game. Now, I'm going to skip right over, first of all, to the receiving stats. Josh Allen had an incredible game, but he did not spread the ball out very well. We had 6 receptions by Gabriel Davis, who was the star for the Bills alongside Josh Allen. He had 8 receptions, 201 yards, and all 4 of Josh Allen's passing touchdowns. You also saw 6 receptions by anti-vaxxer and all-around just kind of bad person, Cole Beasley, and 4 receptions from Devin Singletary, their running back. Everyone else was between 1 and 3 and really didn't have enough numbers to make an impact. Whereas on Patrick Mahomes' side, you saw 11 receptions for 150 for Tyreek Hill, 8 receptions for 96 for Travis Kelce, 5 receptions for 54 from Jarrett McKinnon, 5 receptions for 29 for Byron Pringle. He was spreading the ball out everywhere. Everyone got their hands on the ball, and that is something that is very impressive. Now, after this game, everyone's dogging on Mahomes, and everyone's trying to say that Josh Allen is as good, if not better, than Mahomes. And most of that has to do with Patrick Mahomes' fiance being annoying after the game, which doesn't really have anything to do with him. So let's just look at it stat-wise. Patrick Mahomes had more completions than Josh Allen. He had more attempts, but he had a higher percentage, completion percentage that is, Josh Allen having 73% and Patrick Mahomes having 75%. Patrick Mahomes had more yards, 378 to 329. He did throw for fewer touchdowns, but Patrick Mahomes did score 1 touchdown on the ground himself, so you can kind of add that onto his. He had 1 total yard more rushing than Josh Allen did, and he had a higher QBR, but a slightly lower QB rating. Now, QBR and QB rating are 2 very different stats. One of them is to 1 through 100, the other one goes up to 158.3 for some god-awful math reason, and I hate math, so I'm not even going to try and attempt to figure out why that is. But what we can say after this game, looking at it, watching the game, and looking at the stats, is that they're both very good. We don't have to fight over who's better or who's the best. They're both very good. My opinion is that Patrick Mahomes is the most talented quarterback that has ever played football in the NFL, with Aaron Rodgers being second. But Aaron Rodgers chokes in the playoffs, so we don't talk about him on this show. One more quick note about the receivers. We had that incredible run by Tyreek Hill that kind of made everyone go, oh yeah, I forgot Tyreek Hill was that good. And we had a surprisingly quiet day from Stephon Diggs, who you may notice I didn't mention when I was calling out the Bills receivers. He had 3 receptions for 7 yards. Now, the Kansas City secondary has been shaky all year. That game they had against Cincinnati during the end of the year showed that. They lost one-on-one coverage pretty much every single pass. But they were able to stop Stephon Diggs without Tyrann Mathieu. So we'll see how that works for them in the AFC Championship. In the coming days, you'll get a look at the NFC Championship game. I'll give you a preview, but for now, we're going to move away from football and on to last night's games. First game I want to talk about was another overtime game, this time in college basketball, where we saw Texas Tech at Kansas. Looking at the box score, this game really shouldn't have even been as close as it was. Texas Tech's two best scorers only combined for 7 points total, but Williams was able to score 33 points on 14 of 19 from the field and 4 for 4 from 3. We're on Kansas' side. Ochai Agbaji scored 37 points in the double overtime game with 13 of 23 from the field and 7 of 12 from 3, also including a crazy three-point shot that was so good it barely moved the net. This game was definitely a sweat going into the end of regulation. As someone who had money on Texas Tech, I was certainly happy with how close the game was, and then it went to overtime and I realized, oh God, I have to sweat this out even more. Then I enjoyed the first overtime as a college basketball fan, and once it was still tied, I said, oh God, please make this stop. I don't want to lose money. But finally, in the third overtime, after Kansas took a 3-point lead, there was really nothing the Red Rangers could do. Moving to the pro basketball scene, we saw the Bulls take on the Thunder in a game that made me want to tear my hair out. I had the Bulls -2, and I've been betting on Bulls games for the past week now, and every single one has gone against me, and every single one has been just as awful as the last. The Bulls won here 111-110. And just to explain quickly how spreads work in betting, I had the Bulls -2. Which means they need to win the game by at least 2 points. If they win by exactly 2, you push, which means you get what you bet back and no winnings. They won by 1, which means I lost. The reason I've been betting on the Bulls recently is because Zach LaVine was out, but they still had DeMar DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic, and they were facing some pretty weak opponents, so I figured they can probably cover the spread against a lot of these teams. Guess what? They couldn't, because they stink. Tonight, they finally got Zach LaVine back, and I thought, oh my God, this is perfect. I'm finally going to win this bet. But guess what? DeMar DeRozan sat out. No reason, no injury, just they sat him out. So instead, Ayo Dosunmu from Illinois, rookie, came out here and scored 24 points, 10 of 14 from the field, 4 of 6 from 3. Made up for the loss of DeRozan, but you think maybe if they had him, they wouldn't have gone into the fourth quarter scoring 19 points where the Thunder scored 32 to close the gap all the way to 1. They were up by 11 points going into the fourth, and they won by 1, excuse me, making me a big old loser. With all that being said, yesterday I ended up with a record of 2-2. One of those was a parlay, which means you bet multiple games with a single bet. That was North Carolina -4.5 versus Virginia Tech. North Carolina covered easily, winning that game by 10. And the Texas Tech game, as we went over, Texas Tech lost by 3, which covered the 6.5-point spread. The Bulls -2 pick was a loser. The Pacers money line against the New Orleans Pelicans was a loser. I've been betting the Pacers for quite a while now. They're great against the spread, but when it comes to money lines, I haven't been as lucky. And the Jazz +9 against the Suns was a winner, as they only lost by 6. Going into tonight, my total record for the year 2022 is 35, 39, and 2 draws. So that leaves me with a percentage of 47%. Which 47% sounds bad, but if we were talking about units, which is another term for the money you're betting with, I'm actually up for the year. So that is one thing about gambling that is a bit odd. My picks for tonight are, first in the NBA, the Nets over the Lakers. I'm taking the money line. The Lakers have been shaky all year, and they're just now kind of getting their core guys back. I think that's actually going to be a detriment, and I think the Nets with 2 guys, Kyrie Irving and James Harden, both guaranteed to score you a good amount of points, will take care of business in the Crypto.com arena. The Rockets are underdogs at home, +5.5. I like them to beat the Spurs outright, but I haven't had the best luck betting the money line on the Rockets, so I went with the spread. And lastly, in the NBA, I took the Warriors -3.5 over the Mavericks. Mavericks had a hard-fought win the other night, and I think the Warriors are getting back into their groove. Moving on to what I like to call the community college basketball consensus picks. That's a big abbreviation. I like to take the most consensus picks in college basketball by the experts that I follow at least, and put them all together into a low-cost parlay, which means you essentially take a bunch of bets, put them together, say, I think all of these things are going to happen, and then the odds of that all of those things happening are so high that the payout is very high as well. So I have Duke minus 11.5 over Clemson. Clemson stinks. The ACC pretty much stinks. The big powerhouses you used to see like Duke are kind of going by the wayside nowadays. You got new teams like Auburn and Arizona, Texas Tech, even though they lost. Kansas is pretty much one of the only ones standing, and even Kansas State almost beat them. So those old, whatever they used to be called, the blue, 4 blue or whatever they were called, they're kind of going by the wayside. I have Michigan State plus 4.5 against Illinois. Kofi Cockburn is going to be a 50-50, and their other best player, whose name escapes me at the moment, is also out for the game, so I figured this was an easy spread to bet on. And Arizona minus 3.5 at UCLA. Arizona is one of the best teams in the country, and going into UCLA, there's going to be no fans in attendance. So I think that this is going to be a pretty game for Arizona to cover. That is it for the first episode of Kelley Calls It. My name is Jack Kelley, and I appreciate everyone watching. Please leave your feedback down below, and I will see you again soon.